name is Joellen Litz, and I'm Chair of the Board of Assessment and Review, along with my two colleagues.
Bob Phillips, Mike Coon.
Nice to meet you.
And our staff.
Dan Seaman.
Carl Stumpf.
Ted Cotton.
And for the record, your names are?
I'm Cheryl Tennant-Humes. I'm with Zip and Tannenbaum representing Promenade.
Leonard J. Pansella Jr., the appraiser.
Okay. And we'd like to start by pointing to the map on the screen, and it shows an aerial view of Promenade East, which contains the giant grocery store on the east end of town. Is that the property you are here to discuss?
That's correct.
Okay. Then from there, we'll just outline a little bit that we ask you to tell us what you think the value of the property is and why. We may ask questions as we go. When we're done, our attorney couldn't make it today. If we have questions, it may be up to 2 weeks till we get back to you with a decision in writing. That being said, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm just going to present Mr. Patsella's testimony, and he'll take us through the report. Does everyone have a copy of the report?
We just got it today. We haven't had time to review it ahead, but we have it.
The property, as you say, it's on the east side of town. It's a shopping center, Giant on one side, a group of smaller stores from the Giant over to 8th Avenue. In the lower section there is a Giant gas station, and then behind that is the PA Fine Wine and Good Spirits. Right, it's a freestanding liquor store. Okay. We believe the value is $10,430,000 based on the income and expenses, the income approach, which in our report is page 55. We've looked at the rents in the areas. We've got various, page 52 shows you some available properties showing some of their rents. Most of these rents are not listed. So you can give me a price and we'll start negotiating. The interesting thing about this is of these sales, of these offerings that we have, there's a 732,232 square feet of total buildings, and of that 14.6% is vacant. That's 107,000, and a little over that, probably closer to 15.5% is available, meaning that people are in there but would be willing to move out or want to move out eventually. So from the standpoint of the income and expenses, and we've got an income and expense statement in the addendum of the report. Here's all the leases summarized on page 55. Tells you all of them. There is a store of 7,600 square feet that's vacant, which is about 7.5%. The rents are all listed. There's a Lamar Companies, that's a sign, so you see that as 1 square foot in total rent paid. That's a sign, advertising sign on the property. They pay $8,500 a year. The others are based on price per square foot per year. How many square feet times that price per square foot per year? There is no percentage rent coming out of that. There is allowance of vacancy and collection at 13% on this one. Plus we've got the tax income that is brought in other words, to repay the taxes, and the CAM water reimbursements of $175,000. So when you add all that income up, you get $1,465,000. Our expenses are basically 6% for management and administration. The actual CAM expenses, the common area maintenance expenses, insurance, and we've got capital reserves and miscellaneous. We did not subtract an expense for taxes. That is going to be loaded into the capitalization rate. Right. So from the capitalization rate, we've used a 7.82%, which is an average of the capitalization rates found in the area. We've got a 7% average. We're just a little bit above that. The addition to the capitalization rate is 2.174% for the tax load. Gives you a total of 9,997. Dividing out the net income by that 9,997, or let's say 10%, gives you $10,430,000, which is what we believe the value of the subject is. Now, we've also looked at a sales comparison approach. There's a grid on page 48 which summarizes all of the individual sales that appear in there. Those sales range from a low of $57.75 on up to $140 a square foot, 140, 155, 155 a square foot, 60, 116, 57, 182, and 100. And I believe the subject, based on its income and expenses especially, is closer to the $100 a square foot or $10,400,000 for the subject itself. So that's what we believe the value of the property is.
Okay. Are you completed with your remarks? And did you have anything else?
No, we're relying on the report.
Okay. At this time, do you have any questions? No. Commissioner? Gentlemen?
Just curious why you didn't use any Lebanon County sales.
That were better than the $100 a square foot.
Which ones were they?
Redner's anchored property in Campbelltown area, Palmyra. And there's the, what we call the Palmyra Shopping Center in downtown Palmyra along 422. Both of which is sold for better than the $100.
How long ago?
July of 2022. And 2021 was the other one. Now I know both of them don't have a giant store, so maybe that was part of
No,
your-
no. What we do, and again, I'm not from the county, so we rely on other ways of finding what's sold.
Yeah.
So I say, give me the sales of these properties within these parameters, and from CoStar. Typically,
Yeah.
that's what comes. That's where all this stuff is printed out from. So if that didn't show up from there, then I
Because
did.
they're very similar in age. A larger anchor, part strip. The Redner's one has the gas pumps involved as well, although they're not as many pumps as
What?
Giant.
Okay, what again, to me, and this is my fault for not finding these things. What happens to CoStar, if you use CoStar, is that they take, if there's one tax parcel and there's 4 buildings, they separate it by roofs.
Right.
So if I look for something that's 75,000 feet and up, and the Giant there was only 55,000 feet, and they put a separate value on that doesn't show up, even though that was part of the rest of the thing, the rest of the property. So that's why I may not have found that. I mean, obviously I would have included that had I found it. Anything.
We
First
just
thing we look
wondered-
for is nearby sales
Yeah.
within these parameters.
And obviously, we have that information right at our fingertips, so that's the first thing we see.
I understand that well. I would say, you know more than I do about this account.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was a reason why it didn't make the list, or it was discounted, or you just weren't aware of it, perhaps.
When I go back, I'm gonna look for it, and I'll print it out and send it to you, show you why.
Yeah, we'll talk it over at the office and with.
If there were several buildings, was the total size 100,000 feet?
It was primarily one building. It's all adjoined except for the pumps, of course. But it's 70,000 square feet.
Should
So
have
it's-
shown that.
Should have shown up. Yeah. Depending on what your parameters in your search, it should have shown up.
Do you have a tax parcel?
Now, July 22
July of 22.
may not have been in there.
Yeah,
That's true.
perhaps. But anyways, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's a very good question,
That's reasonable.
Carl.
No, again, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because I always felt that just from a point of view, the gas pump situation with a property that has that as part of it can get a little bit more involved as far as value because of other than say the lease on the building, there might be other avenues in there that's adding value to a potential buyer.
Like maybe there's an operating agreement or something
Yeah.
like that, but then you run into business value too, because I know
Yeah.
we're now like for whatever reason, when I started at the office, I've gotten all the gas station appeals,
Okay.
gas stations and banks.
Yeah.
And so, you're seeing the sort of standard old model that's becoming functionally obsolete with just the gas and the service. But now you're seeing Wawas and Sheetz's, and there's still, some people are still trying to use the old way of valuing.
But if you look at the income approach, you'll see there's a giant
Yeah, I see there's a separate line item.
separate line item for fuel store.
And it's just another thing that before the liquor store lease and before the pumps were in there, it actually sold for higher than what we're saying it's worth now, and this was several years ago.
10
Yeah. So we're trying to grasp, why is that the case when,
And renovations to the main building as well.
yeah, Giant did a complete overhaul of their store since then as well. So
But
they're there to
that's
stop.
tenant fit out
Yeah,
that goes in there.
But
And the
that's-
same thing with, when you say there's a gas station lease, they're effectively leasing the ground.
mhm,
Then Giant put the pumps in.
yeah,
And the pumps are not generally considered real estate, right? The pumps, all that kind of stuff. The canopies are, but not the, but that's a lease of the ground, effectively, that's what it's there.
Right.
yeah.
Right. And would you say, Jack, what have you seen with retail trends in buildings like this over the last 3 years?
One of the problems has always been that retail is trending on the downside. And so there have been, we've seen rents stabilize, we've seen vacancies increase. You try to overlook what happened when you shut down a whole economy and restaurants went crazy. So you see some of that happening. At the same time, Giant was an attraction because that's where everybody was going, was the food stores, and that was an increase. But in the long run, retail has not been particularly kicking up. All right. This one and this size project, this size building is to me a somewhat stable thing because you don't have a huge amount of small space. You have a Giant anchor there. That Giant has been one of the goals. Now, the other thing is, even though Giant's in there and that's an attraction, do you appraise something valued on this Giant? Do I appraise a house because someone who's got a good income lives in that house? Is that worth more than one next door to someone who doesn't have a good income? So to me, that's a key question. Am I just looking at the average? But in the long run, this is a very solid building, and it's going to stay there. And I've seen things around here that are like this that I think you're on the east side of town. You're on where the line splits. It's a good spot, but it's it lightens up on the other side of on the east side of the property. Let me say the income side over there is not as high as the income side. So
I would like to just interject two thoughts and ask for your feedback on them. One is, in this last year, we have seen inflation across the board, and you're going back 3 years, but it's only in the last year. The real estate prices have gone up, the cost of materials and the shortage of materials to build adds to the cost. And so that's one just thing that goes through my mind. And the other is that I've read, and I think I've even shared articles with our staff, I don't know, the Central Bend Business Journal, wherever I got it, but it's saying that outlets like Amazon are buying up shopping centers in order to use them for warehousing and retail, I don't know, whatever they do, pickups, but Amazon is buying up these shopping centers. So if you could address that, just so I can clear my mind on some of those things, I'd
So
appreciate it.
that's a highest and best use kind of argument, I think.
What happens, and when you look at, to me, it's more of a mall type thing,
Okay.
where again, this little shopping center will have a high enough price tag that it may keep Amazon from buying it. All right, but if you have a mall in town that's not doing well, okay, we've appraised malls. We're talking about 1 million square foot of a building that could sell for $20 a square foot. And that's effectively land value. And so that's where an Amazon will buy that tear that down, and if we go up 81 to Frackville, that's what happened up there to the mall at Frackville. It was taken down. There's a big warehouse there now where that was. And the reason for that is that site has already been leveled out, approved for 1 million feet. So the warehouse person comes in and says, hey, I want to put 1 million feet there. Usually you'll get the ability to do that.
And
So that's a lot of
that's
what's
right off
happening.
of an interstate also, right?
Right. So from a standpoint of, and when you're talking about smaller ones like this is happening with small space in dense cities, because that's where they don't have the ability to go buy a large tract of land and start building something on it. So that's happened in some areas. We have some in suburban Philadelphia, for instance, in Montgomery County, where a Walmart was bought by Amazon for $100 a square foot and converted to a warehouse. Right? And that's for quick delivery of small items to the neighborhood. So that's what's happening on those sectors. And again, if they're looking for large space for a warehouse, it's going to be 1 million foot.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question on that too. I just did a case with your colleague Kevin Flynn, and he was talking about, and I'm just going to ask you if you've seen this trend too, that there's now a saturation of warehouse properties where we're starting to see that coming down in certain areas.
We've been talking to a warehouseman who has a warehouse in Northampton County, and the assessment on that one is $85 a square foot or something like that. He believes it's worth more than that, twice that. So we said to him, why are you trying to file an appeal? Do you think it's worth twice that? And there are enough sales out there to say that's a good number. 2 years ago, that was his contention. I can get $160 a square foot for that. Right? That's what he's trying to do. He still owns it. Today, he's hopeful that he can get $80 a square foot. So my point is that he's now recognizing that things have saturated. And again, if you've been up the Route 33 corridor lately, if you see that, certainly you see it out here along 78, on up 81, right? It's like 1 million foot mushrooms showing up where there used to be nothing. And you can only put so much stuff in warehouses.
Did you have a closing statement? Because I think I actually left this go over time, but we had somebody cancel in the middle, so if you have a closing statement.
We'll stand on the report if you have no further questions.
Okay. Any final comments? Okay. Then thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you as well. Had a beautiful
I'll send it to
drive
the
through the
assessor's
country.
office, those sales you get. If you have an email address, I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Or
I'll give you-
email.